Good morning. We have to unmute. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Blueye studio. This week we are going to talk about education and research. By my side I have Martin Ludvigsen, professor at NTNU. Happy to have you.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Martin has long experience with the research in the northern areas around Spitsbergen or Svalbard. He's also the leader of AUR lab. What's that?
That's the Applied Underwater Robotics Laboratory, where we try to collect and have run all the underwater robotics assets at the university in Trondheim together.
Okay. So, yeah, let's start on the slides. So, can you just start by telling us a little bit about this project you had up north with the marine archaeology? And
yes, I can do that. The images we see here is from Svalbard last summer. Last summer, NTNU and University in Tromsø and University in Svalbard had a joint project in Svalbard to find or to search for the wreck of 17 lost whaling vessels from the 18th century. And these were sort of the vessels were sank and put to fire as an act of war, and it was really tough times between the Dutch and the French and the Englishmen during that period, because in the past whaling oil was very appreciated and expensive. So we had the idea that in these Arctic conditions the shipwrecks would be very well preserved, so we went up there with a large or a fleet of underwater vehicles, 2 Blueye vehicles and 3 AUVs to search for these very old shipwrecks. Unfortunately, it turned out that the conditions in Svalbard is not that suited for preserving the shipwrecks. So we think that these shipwrecks are now torn down and reduced by the marine life. But also in this operation, the Blueye vehicle turned out to be extremely useful. The mode of operation was that we searched the large areas with the AUVs and the sonars. And when we find some interesting targets or objects, we deployed the Blueye vehicle to check them out with video to see if it was something that could be man-made, if it could be of historical value, or could have any other specific interest to us. So
can you just walk us through, like, how do you start with the you said the AUV, so you do that first, or
yeah,
what's the process?
Yeah, the process is that the very first the researcher or the archaeologist, they look to areas where they think is the highest probability of finding a shipwreck, and they mark out the most interesting areas, and they can be square kilometers and larger areas. And when we identify these areas, we deploy the AUV to go there and start search with the side scan sonar. And after the mission is done, we get the vehicle on board and download the side scan data and analyze them. And in this analysis, we usually find a list of targets or interesting areas. And from this list of interesting areas, we start with the most interesting and check them one by one with the Blueye vehicle. Because in a side scan imagery, it can be hard to differentiate between a rock and a man-made or a historical object.
So, but how do you start selecting the, let's say, most probable areas? Do you have like a feeling of where there's been a harbor, or do you just pick an area and systematically go through the whole coastal line of Svalbard, or?
Yeah, we start with historical sources, where there are some histories or books or writings that tell us, describe where the activity has been, and also we look at the map where it's favorable to be, typical harbor areas, and we go from there to find the most probable areas.
Yeah. Oh, that's very exciting. Actually, I remember I had one of your courses up at Svalbard. It was within this field of applied underwater robotics, and I think it was the world northernmost shipwreck of what's it called, a whale cooker or something?
Yeah, a boiling vessel.
Boiling vessel.
That is right. For that project, we have gotten a tip of an area where it was expected to find a shipwreck. There was also written sources about a fire in a boiling vessel. So we went to this area with an AUV and a side scan sonar, and we found the shipwreck. This was a vessel that was actually it was placed there in 1910 to boil the oil out of the meat or the parts of the whales.
Yeah.
According to it was actually an accident with matches or fireworks.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that the boiling vessel was put to fire and burned down and sank in 1910. And it had not been seen before we found it back in 2015, I think.
Yeah.
So that was sort of pre Blueye, so it was more demanding to get down there.
Yes. But of course it was similar setup with the AUV first, and then pinpointing points of interest and going down with the ROV to see what it actually looks like and get the real condition of it.
Yeah, that is right.
Mm.
So, and after that we've been back visiting it multiple times. So one of the images we see here in the slide is actually in the boiler from this vessel, and we visited also last year with the 2 Blueye vehicles.
Okay, so it's the same one.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, and I think also if we talk about Blueye vehicle itself, and what is the value of the Blueye vehicle in this context is very much in line with the core values of Blueye. It's a very robust vehicle, so it doesn't break down all the time. We can rely on it, and it's also very user friendly. It doesn't take a lot of training to get to use it, so we can give it away to also the archaeologists. We don't need a dedicated pilot. All of that enhances or simplifies our operations. And in the Arctic, that is very, very important, because the logistics in the Arctic is very tough. First, we need to go to Longyearbyen, and then we need to go to research vessel, and sometimes we also need to have planes out of Longyearbyen. So that makes it very hard to bring expensive equipment, and also to bring spares or repairs when we're in the field is very demanding. So in that way, we really appreciate the robustness and the simplicity of the Blueye for these applications.
That's a very good point, and of course it's also difficult for us to get up there quick enough, so we just have to make a product that works.
yeah. And in that terms, this has been very good. We have never had any breakdowns or any problems with these vehicles during these operations.
Yeah, that's and it's also rough conditions with very low temperatures. You probably seldom come below zero or above zero.
Yeah, that's true.
Celsius.
So both in the air and in the water, it's very cold. But this vehicle handles this very well.
I'm happy to hear that, of course. And then you also had a different project, which was more in the field of microbiology. Can you tell us a bit about this
we have a project that is called the Nansen Legacy, which is one of the largest research projects in Norway, where we try to figure out what is going on in the northern Barents Sea and the Arctic Sea. Driven by the climate change, we see in these areas that the conditions are changing very fast. Some have claimed that during the last 30 years, the average temperature in Svalbard and this region has raised by several degrees Celsius. and then we need to figure out what does this mean to biology. How does this change the communities, and how does this change productivity in this area? So this is sort of the core of the Nansen Legacy. We do microbiology, we do physical oceanography, and our responsibility is technology development for this context. So we go to this area several times a year. For the project, we will stay up there with more than 300 days with the research vessel. Actually, we have a student that is up there right now with the Blueye, actually. But the project or the cruise that is described in this story that we see here was 2 years ago when we went with the Norwegian icebreaker Kronprins Haakon.
Yeah, in the picture behind the drone, right?
Yeah, that's right. So then we went to the Arctic ice north of Svalbard, and it was actually shocking to myself to see how little ice was left. I was in the same area 10 years ago, and it's considerable lower amount of ice compared to my last trip 10 years ago. Yeah. That can be national or the seasonal variations, of course, but it's a very alarming trend that the Arctic ice is reduced in a very rapid pace.
Is this during the summer season you go, or doesn't it matter? Like, do you have to go in summer, or?
Yeah, for this Nansen Legacy project, we try to visit this area for all the seasons. So we will be there in spring, fall, winter, summer. Okay. So this was a fall season project. We were there in September, and part of it was to observe the underside of the ice. In some seasons, this underside of the ice is very productive. There's a large concentration of ice algae that sort of graze and live on the underside of the ice and have their photosynthesis and have all their life living there as a biological community. This activity is strongest in the spring season, so we did not expect to find that very strong community in the fall, but still this is a very important part of the biological community in the Arctic.
But why is it important, and what's like the chain of biology? Since it's microbiology, it has to be some.
Yes, it's important because this is where the energy is created, so to say. It utilizes the sunlight, and through photosynthesis it creates biomass. That's again the food for the next level, which is typically zooplankton, which goes on to become food for fish and so on. So it's the primary energy engine into the biological system. So, and that is all driven by the sun and by the availability of what we call the plant plankton or phytoplankton that we call it. So if there are changes there, it's very vulnerable for the rest of the system.
Yeah. Is it any different being right under the ice versus being in the ocean right outside the ice, or?
Yes, it's different species. Some species they thrive and they need to live on the interface between ice and water. And in the free water body, there are other species of phytoplankton, and they sort of have their different communities. So it's important to understand how this changes the community as a whole. As we have less and less ice, and then also less and less ice algae. So
that will then impact the rest of the animals in that chain in a way.
Yeah.
And that's also why you do research on it, I believe, right?
Yes. So, but of course my role in this is to provide technology and develop technology that is suited in this context. And for many research projects, coming back to Blueye and the simplicity and robustness is essential, because also here when we go up here, it's heavy logistics and it's hard to communicate if something goes wrong. So we depend on having robust vehicles, and then they sort of become building blocks for designing experiments and doing science out of them. So So Blueye becomes both a camera in itself, but also in some experiments we see them as instrument carriers. So they carry the instrument under the ice to provide measurements and samples.
Yeah. And sometimes you just use it as your working horse as well. I remember one story you told me about. You have this AUV called Remus, which was deployed under the ice, and sometimes it can be hard to get it exactly back to the hole you put it into.
Yes. So
what did you do then?
So the Remus is like a cable-free vehicle, so it flies by itself as an autonomous vehicle. And when we deploy it under ice, then we of course depend on it that it comes back to the deployment hole. And for this operation, sometimes it did not. It surfaced really close to the hole, but not exactly in the hole. And it's at that point it was too dangerous to put divers in to go and get the vehicle. And in this situation, we depended on the Blueye. So the Blueye went under the ice and carried the AUV back to the hole. And it secured the investment, because these are also expensive assets, these vehicles, so we really do not want to lose them under the ice.
Yeah. No, of course. All right. So I was thinking I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit about something called the Blueye Software Development Kit. It's something we made on request from NTNU, the university here in Trondheim, to make it easier to access or to manipulate the drone through software. So with the Blueye SDK, you can basically use Python to control the drone by sending your own commands and also receive all the log data and IMU data, depth data, all the signals going through the drone. So this is an open source lib which is accessible in GitHub, and we also have well documentation on how to get started, and can be a very good resource for both the students and PhDs, professors who wants to do something a bit different with our drones. So Martin, can you just tell us a bit about this project?
Yes, this first of all, I think this is a very important tool for us doing technology research, that we're able to write code and use this more integrated in our research and applications. So in this example we see in this slide, we have a few PhD students that work with the hyperspectral camera. So in essence, a hyperspectral camera can see continuous bands of colors. It's like our eye, and most cameras, they will only do red, green and blue, and mix these colors to create the full spectrum. But the hyperspectral camera, they do the full spectrum of colors from blue to red, and the visible range of light to the human eye is from 400 nanometers to 700 nanometers. So you can think that we have a much higher resolution in color compared to the human eye or a regular camera. So this hyperspectral camera is then used to image, in this example, red algae, brown algae, or minerals. And the idea behind this is that when we have this high resolution color, to call it that, hyperspectral images, we have much more color information than the human eye can get. And when we have this very detailed color information, we call this an optical footprint. And the optical footprint can then be used to identify substances underwater. So we can, for example, see the difference between an artificial green color and the green color of chlorophyll. And we can also have the optical footprint of the color pigments of all that we will typically find underwater. So when we image with this imager, we can identify the present pigments, And when we know what pigments are there, we can also trace that back to what species are there.
Yeah, in terms of different types of algae, or is it more on the plants or seaweed and stuff? Or
yes, that can actually go to any substance, but we have used it quite a lot for plankton but also for seaweed.
okay.
And algae. In this example, the red algae and the brown algae, which is it's some type of seaweed, you can say.
What's the importance of knowing if it's a brown or a red algae, and why are you looking for this?
They have their separate. First of all, they contribute to the primary production, so that they are doing photosynthesis, creating oxygen from carbon dioxide, and sort of doing the opposite of what
we do.
What we do. So to know the state of this community is important to understand how we affect it, and also to be able to be quantitative, to be able to say what are the areas and how much area do we have covered with algae, and how much algae is there, and what is the state of the current algae is. Those are important research questions. So, and this is a camera and technology that is developed by another startup in Trondheim, Ecotone.
Yeah, that's right.
But the camera itself is maybe too large for one Blueye vehicle. So the camera is what we see right in the center in the image, with the two vehicles on this common blue frame. So to be able to deploy this hyperspectral camera in a simple way, we constructed this blue frame that we see in this image. And then the next challenge was, how can we fly like two vehicles that are connected?
Yeah.
So basically we want these two vehicles to behave as one vehicle. And to do that, there was a Ph.D. student that developed equation framework covering the kinematics and the kinetics for this double vehicle. And this is implemented using the SDK that Blueye have provided. So using this SDK, the software that this PhD student developed can now have these two vehicles behave as a single vehicle, and you can control both vehicles with a single joystick and maneuver in a way that's required for this application.
Yeah, so you can basically combine more Blueyes to make a big working class ROV almost.
Yeah, no limit, we can pay 4 or 10. So.
It's just the budget. Yeah.
So,
and just like cost-wise, how would you compare the two drones versus working class ROV big enough to carry this instrument?
Yes, I'd say there are at least 2 decades shallower, and it's also a lot easier logistics. So I talked about Svalbard. These images are from Svalbard. We didn't have the resource to bring a large world-class ROV for this experiment. So that makes it easier and more also cheaper to do it. And at the same time, these vehicles are reliable. So if we should have to maintain both our own research setup and on addition to that handle a vehicle that is not operationally stable, that would maybe be a deal breaker. So this is an example where Blueye is a stable building brick into a more complicated setup.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. Yeah. That's the trust allocation we see on the slide there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just
so that
extraction I made from the final report.
Yeah, that is true. So that is one of the main tricks about having 2 vehicles work as one, is to how to allocate the trust.
Yeah.
So and to further extend this, this vehicle is now set up so it can do transects or follow straight lines with a fixed heading and a fixed velocity, but also a fixed distance to the seabed.
Okay.
So there is a small altimeter or echosounder, if you like, that measures the distance to the seabed on this rig. And this is then going into a controller that controls the depth, so we can sort of fly the vehicle with a constant distance to the seabed. and that is important for this application because the camera is sensitive to light, and to get this image as good as possible, we like to have all the images taken at the same distance from the object.
Yeah, so you keep the parameters constant in a way.
Yeah.
When flying on the surface. Do you have positioning as well on it, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do also measure the position because we really want to know where each pixel is on the seabed, so to say.
Yeah.
So that is also part of the tricks, to be able to know where we are.
And the image on top of the 3 graphs there, is that what's it called, photogrammetry or stitched images?
The way this camera works is that it images like a small strip, like almost a line of pixels.
Okay.
In one image.
Similar to a side scan almost?
Similar to a side scan. And then you move on to the next step and so on, and then you build your image. So the image over here is from one transect where we have flown with a fixed heading and a fixed velocity and stitch together all the lines to an image.
Yeah.
And for each pixel, then we don't have the only red, green, and blue. We have the full spectrum, which is seen in the graphs beneath, with light spectrum from 400 to 700 nanometers.
Yeah. I see there are some questions coming. That's very good, and just keep posting. There is one question from Francisco Romero. What differentiates Blueye from the other products in the market?
Yeah.
You can start by saying something about
from the research applications.
Robustness.
Is the robustness that it sort of always works. And I myself been working with underwater vehicles for more than 20 years, and I know that keeping them operational is usually a lot of work. It requires a lot of maintenance. Mm-hmm. And you also need to have redundancy plans because they tend to break down, and you need to know what to do if you have a technical problem. With the Blueye setup, this is reduced very, very much. So it's very rare that we have any technical problem with the Blueye. We charge them and switch them on, and they just work. So that is very unique. And also this SDK that enables us to connect our research to the vehicle directly is a very unique feature that we really appreciate from our university. Also that because it's so easy to use, the user threshold is so low, we can give it to students and they will immediately figure out how to use it, and they will be able to produce results that are valuable to us in just a few minutes. As late as yesterday, we gave it to a fresh master student, and she was able to fly it, produce good video, and contribute to the research without any prior training.
Yeah, exactly. And myself, also coming from the same institute as you are working in now,
yeah.
I remember I had to spend 1 year to build the ROV before I could start working on it and writing code towards it. So it's a huge benefit in terms of speeding things up, that you can have a platform that is stable and you can focus on the application more than the hardware. So that's also having something that is a stable hardware platform, but also flexible on the software side. I think it's a very good starting point for a master thesis, for instance. Yeah, we also have lots of questions in the chat. Some people have been asking about the AUV. I think we have covered that. Autonomous underwater vehicle.
Yeah. And what the biggest practical difference is the AUV doesn't really have an umbilical or a cable. So that makes a lot of things easier. We don't have the drag, but we also don't really have any way to pull it back.
Yeah.
So we need to rely on that it comes back.
And they usually go quite slow and for longer distances and cover larger areas because you don't have the cable.
So then you typically program them ahead of time, and they will execute their program and come back to the point where you program them to go. So you don't have this real-time video feed, for example, that we get from the Blueye. But on the other hand, you can go kilometers and kilometers and hours for hours.
Yes.
So they're quite complementary to the Blueye vehicle.
Yeah, it's like two different tools in a way.
Yeah.
Have you collected plankton using the Blueye drone?
Only very slightly.
Yeah.
So very small sample so far.
And is that with a tube and something that closes at a certain depth, or?
Just a small grab that we can get a small specimen and get back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to get like one sample of.
Yeah. So I think for that to be effective, we will need to continue developing a good sampler.
Yeah. On that note, we are currently developing something called the guestport drone, which is allows for adding accessories and a gripper, and then this will become easier as well.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, from a research point of view, the guestport will be very valuable. Then it will be much easier for us to add on more instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So far, the instruments that we have been putting on has been the standalone instruments that doesn't really interfere to the vehicle except for the mechanical interface.
Yeah.
But now we can put on temperature sensors, oxygen sensors, or special cameras, and we can, to a much larger degree, see what's going on in real time, and we can also use this information in the applications directly. So we really look forward to the guestport.
Yeah. And you can also get the data streamed live, so you can see them as you go instead of recording and having to look to them like similar to the AUV when you record and watch it after.
Yeah, exactly. So.
All right. Have you collected physical data using the Blueye drone? That's
it goes back
similar
to the Plankton question to a small degree, but we need to develop more tools to be effective on that.
I think we covered that one with payloads. And can we understand about applications in shallow rivers, lakes?
Yes, what I can say is that the Blueye vehicle compared to other ROVs is quite powerful, so it can handle a lot of current.
Yeah.
Also we have like a thin tether, so that the cable drag is low. That means that we can handle more current than some of the other ROVs.
It's also hydrodynamically shaped, so it has low drag on the body itself.
Yeah. And a lot of this for the hyperspectral camera application, we did actually a lot of this in shallow water, so it's no problem to have a rig like this or a vehicle to run it in shallow water. That is a good application actually.
Oh, that's very cool. Can water quality testing equipment be integrated to the drone? Is that in terms of chlorophyll and
yes,
oxygen, or
that will be one of the first instruments that we will try to put on it. Will be temperature, salinity, oxygen, chlorophyll, and turbidity.
Yeah.
And when the guestport is in place, I don't see any problem to integrate that.
All right, should we carry on to the next slide? And please just continue to put questions. That's very good. I have the PowerPoint working here. So already today you could very easily access data from your dives directly in the iOS or Android app. So on the screen here on the top left you see what we call the diving details. I see it's in Norwegian now, but we also have the app in English, of course. So here you will get like an overview of the depth profile and also like the water temperature and some simple data. But if you want more in-depth data from your dive, you can click on the top right share button, and you can right away generate a report either to PDF directly, or you can create a Word file that can be transferred to your computer if you want to continue writing on your report, adding comments to the pictures, or manipulating the graphs, etc. So there's already like a automatic report generation feature, and we also have the ability to create a CSV file directly from the dive. And the CSV file is, I guess most of you have experience with that, like the center image. You can select the columns you like and plot the data and see how is the temperature changing versus the depth, for instance. And of course, when we get to the guest port, it will be very handy to have easy access to the data, and it's available in a structured way, and you can create your own viewers and stuff if you have recurring tasks.
Yes, as a scientist, we know that this is all about documentation, so this is a very valuable asset. And we also appreciate the ability to export as a CSV file.
Yeah, not just the app. Nice things.
The PDF file can be sometimes hard to utilize, but when we have it in CSV, we can include it in our own results and our own plots in a very good way. So that is really appreciated.
Yeah.
So. And I hope also when the guest port gets there that we'll also be able to connect directly to the instrument, so we can adjust and operate the instrument directly.
Yes, exactly. It will be you will have access to the network on the surface unit, and then you have the same network going down to the different sensors. So it should be possible to manipulate just as if you had the sensors right next to you.
That is really appreciated. That is also the way that we currently work with the larger ROVs.
Yeah.
So the platform, so to say, would be transparent.
But one benefit that we're trying to achieve is to combine most of this data into one log file, so it's easier to do time syncing and to know what data is fitting together.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Serious listening. So
and another application that will be very valuable for us is when we are able to have positioning.
Yes.
So if we can connect the navigation system, either a USBL or a Doppler log system, to the guest ports and have that integrated, I think that will create a lot of value for many of our applications to be able to georeference the observations that we do.
Yes, of course, because then right away you have one column with the X and then one with Y, and you have the temperature measurements or whatever you're looking for, and it could easily be plotted right away.
Yeah.
And also combining the data and everything will save a lot of time in post-processing. For at least for setting up new projects, and
clearly.
It's also, we picture this being very useful for educational purposes as well. It could be like this is relevant and at so many different levels. It could be the most hardcore experiments at Svalbard, or it could be some simple junior high or even elementary school projects in right outside the school. So it's making it easier to access data from below the surface.
Yeah. This comes, of course, from the simplicity and robustness that we can give the vehicle to almost anybody, and that they will be able to sort out how it's done in a very, very fast way. So yeah, as I mentioned, we give it to students, and they are productive in a very few minutes.
Yeah.
So it can be useful both for both for more hardcore engineering science, where we work with the SDK, develop kinematics, kinetics, control algorithms, but also on marine science, where like biologists and archaeologists and oceanographers, they can use it without being able to dive into the technical details of the vehicle. They can just focus on the operations and the functions and be productive and collect data for their scientific application. So I think that is a very strong argument for Blueye to be that this simple to operate, while with the SDK maintaining also the flexibility to do more advanced operations.
Yeah.
So I know also recently University of Tromsø, they procured 10 vehicles.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so they plan to
Have you heard anything about what they're going to use it for? Or?
So I think they will use it for the broad spectrum, starting from like the basic early year students to provide observations, and for the marine biologists to see which species are there and to observe the species in their natural environment.
Mm-hmm. But
also to bring them to more cutting edge and advanced research cruises into the Arctic ice. So for them, they will cover the full spectrum from the sort of the high end and the prestigious research projects to the early students come to get to learn the ocean.
There is some sort of strong cooperation or link between University of Tromsø and Svalbard, isn't there?
Yes, Tromsø and Svalbard have a very tight and strong collaboration.
Yeah.
But also NTNU has a very good relation and very many common projects to University of Tromsø.
Yeah. So the drones will probably be kind of available in the whole community in a way.
I would think that we will see this drone all over the northern part of Norway.
Yeah.
For both education and for research.
Well, that's very exciting. We're really looking forward to see how they can get the best use out of it, and if they need anything, of course, they can just contact us and we will be happy to help.
Yeah, I see there's a question about what the SDK, and that is the software development kit, which is a tool for developers to use the software.
Yes, and also like it takes you through all the steps you need to get started, and like basic commands as turning on and off the light, and I guess your students have been able to manipulate the lights within 20 minutes or similar. We also had some workshops in Croatia with the SDK.
Yeah. So that makes it possible to integrate the Blueye technology into our software solutions without being dependent on the source code from Blueye. That makes everything much more robust when we can use this SDK to integrate the Blueye solutions into our solutions.
Yeah, and that's also important from our perspective, that we have a common interface. We have one interface to all the developers, which we call the SDK, and we also have an API for retrieving log files and video and pictures. So that way we have a clear interface, so we know that our customers can depend on these types of communications with the drone, even though we maybe change something on our own end or our own software in both topside and inside the drone. So
yeah,
I think it's a good interface.
Yeah, that is very, very good. And in that way, we as a research institute, we're not dependent on Blueye's small changes unless they really want to change the SDK. But as long as they don't change the SDK, our code will continue to work no matter what they are doing.
Yes,
on their end.
And that's of course important if you spend resources and a lot of time in developing things towards our products. So
we don't want to come in a situation where Blueye doesn't do a small upgrade and our work stop working because of that.
Then you're obsolete.
Yes.
Is SDK the question in the chat? It's a software development kit. It's not the T, as you state. Are there any other questions?
And there are in the Q&A.
Do you have any other actual applications for surveillance underwater?
Yes, for Blueye, one of the applications is that we do what we call a transect. So we run the ROV for 100 meters or 150 meters, and then we do count all the species that we see, and then we can run statistics to see the abundance and presence of different species and the distributions of species. That is a typical biological application. For archaeology, we can also do photogrammetry. Blueye have an excellent tutorial on how you can create 3D models of underwater objects. Then we can do measurements and sort of get quantitative values for volumes and so on. So these are more the scientific applications, but for the engineering science, we have been working on control systems and navigation problems, and using this as a robust and easy platform to work with that.
And I also know that in terms of surveillance, we have, I think it was in the Great Barrier Reef, there's a project with looking at the coral reefs with bleaching and trying to map out which areas have been increasing or decreasing in the bleach. So then it's about being able to do frequent measurements and get back to the same area and map over time.
Yeah.
You also been to the coral reef at Tautra, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of surveillance as well.
Yeah. So we just try to sort of map out what kind of species are present.
All right. Where are they produced? Our underwater drones are produced here in Norway. So today we have shipped around 700 units, and we're shipping worldwide, of course. And we also do all our support and all the design and support and manufacturing with new or development of new products is also here in Trondheim. So we're very happy with the 1700 units we have out in the field, and also the high success rate and low failure rate of the drones. We only had like maybe 3 or 4 actual leakages on all those drones. So it's in terms of the industry, like you say, it's common that the product stops working at some point because there's so many ceilings and so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah, and salt water is very corrosive and it's very aggressive to electronics, so it's a challenging task to develop a system that is this robust.
So keeping it simple and do it properly from the start. How old is Blueye?
2015, I think.
Yes, it was founded in 2015, and we do have a lot of sales, as I just said. And we're not profitable yet, but we're strongly on the way there now.
Yeah. So we are like have been for a long time a startup community that is right in the middle of the transition of being a traditional startup to becoming a long-term profitable company. And we see so far that this transition is going quite successful. So we're very optimistic about how this will develop.
Yes. Any new questions in the chat within the research indicator?
Yes. The question is, who will be the main entities doing research and educations? At least here in Norway, in Northern Europe, most of the universities are governmental. Also, many research institutions are governmental, but there are also private research institutions, and I think that this technology is relevant across all these. Both the public and the private research institutes would have value from using the Blueye.
Then there's another question. Any defense applications or use case studies? We do have the Norwegian Coast Guard as a customer. They have used our drones at Helge Ingstad, which is like a big, is it a destroyer it's called? Frigate that sank 1 year ago or something, and that was like a big top news here in Norway, and they ordered Blueyes to be able to get into the wreck and get an overview of the damage and see what it actually looks like inside the wreck, look for potential problems with the missiles and stuff. So both the Coast Guard is using it, and also the mine divers are using it to prepare their diving operations. There are some in terms of surveillance of the seabed or areas around the harbor before these big warships can enter. So and also Coast Guard is using it for looking for attached objects underneath ship hulls. That could be either smuggling with cocaine, or it could be mines with terror attempts.
Yes, that question with maybe you would do the drones as a service question.
Provide drones as a service. Yeah. The question is, do you provide drones as a service? We do not do that today. We have been testing different use cases in the field, but we see that this requires a lot of resources, and we will continue spending our time developing new products and developing in the software and making the core product better for everyone.
Yeah. But we have customers that can provide this as a service.
Yes, that's a very good part. Or good thing you say that, because we also have lots of partners that both provide diving as a service, providing reports, etc., and they also do reselling of our drones, and that's worldwide.
Yeah.
Do we have covered all of them, or?
Yes, the support.
Yeah. The question is, do customers pay Blueye for support or updates, or is the business relationship with the customers just upon the sale of the product? So I'm confident to say that we probably have the best service in customer service in the field, and it's of course free. Here it's our engineers that design the product that are dealing with the incoming requests. So we always find a solution, and we always find the source of it, so we can have it fixed for everyone. And of course all the software updates are free and will always be, and we will ship both new software to the drone itself, which enables new features such as the CSV reporting, and we just released video overlay, and all this is based on feedback from our customers, and we'll constantly bring in what's yeah, the most wanted features. So everything is upgradable, and we also piggyback on the development of new, both the iOS devices and the Android devices. They frequently come out with new updates and will give you larger, better screens faster. So we also always support the newest technology when it comes to the possibilities topside.
Yeah, I think the software is one of the really strong sides of our company compared to the competitors.
And also just the flow of information. When you're connected to a smart device, you can right away have it connected to your own cloud or Dropbox or whatever solution you might have for gathering video and log files. So it's a more modern way of collecting data and managing it.
Yeah, take to the GoPro. The vehicle is prepared for GoPro installment, and there's a GoPro mount on top of it. Sometimes it's valuable to have a different view or an extra camera, so we have also used GoPros for many of our dives. I think it was one of the images from the Arctic. We had an upward-facing camera to get an upward look underneath the ice.
And yesterday you were testing with a 3D camera, was it?
Yes.
Or 360 degrees, maybe?
That's right. Yesterday we ran a test with a 360 degrees camera to collect video for the Scientific Museum here in Trondheim. So we will prepare a video of the underwater environment and present it in a 360 degree monitor or a dome. So that is going to be exciting.
Was that from the new research area? Is it called Amos Vista or something?
We can say that it's a preparation for the Vista Center. The Vista is the scientific side, or it's a scientific organization within funding research from Equinor.
Okay.
So they have funded more robotic research to Trondheim, and hopefully that will also benefit our field here.
Yeah. Well, that's very exciting. All right, I see the time is running, and we don't have any more questions to go through, so maybe we should just say that's it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining, and thanks to Martin for stepping up. That's always fun to get some real stories from the field up north.
Yes, it has been a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Any last minute questions? No. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.